All right, here we are. We're back again for the Street Parking Coaches Roundtable. It's been a few weeks, 3 weeks, I think. We missed last week because we just have been, all of us, working tirelessly on this new logging system for the street parking members. We had some people in town specifically for that. And so we apologize for the missed week, but here we are today, resilient. We're back, and we're talking about resilience and mental toughness, what those things are and how important they might be to your success in your health and fitness journey. Salvi, what episode number is this? 22? That sounds like a lot. Okay. So yeah, this is something I think that I see a lot on just social media in general, or that you hear people say, and it's not always about fitness related things. It can be about anything. But we see it in our Facebook group of people asking like, hey, how do I get mentally stronger? Like, I feel like I just have a hard time pushing myself to do these workouts or to keep going when I don't feel like working out, or I'm just not wired that way. Like, this is just harder for me than it is for other people. And I think it's a really important topic, and something that has come up in the last week or so over here. We were talking about it yesterday about some, childhood stuff and things like that. So I wanted to ask these guys today how they define both resilience and mental toughness, and kind of like their experience with it, and how we might be able to help other people view it maybe differently than they view it now. So to kick it off, I think defining what those terms mean, and instead of giving it one definition, which would be the best way to go, we're each gonna give our own definition. So let's start with, let's confuse them even further and start with resilience. So and I'll start. Resilience to me is just an ability to continue moving. I think sometimes people think of it as a bounce back. In my experience and the way that I view resilience, that's not necessarily true. For me, you don't have to go back to your original state in order to be resilient. If something bad happens, or if you're injured, or you go through a hard time, it's more of an ability to keep moving. And I think a lot of it has to do with attitude toward whatever situation you're in. So for me, that's how I would define or speak about resilience. Jeb?
Yeah, I think all of our definitions are going to be similar. And I would agree with that. I think some of that, what you were saying, kind of starts to get a little into mental toughness for me. I think that resilience is the ability to adapt. So whatever happens, you can adapt to that thing, and then you can keep going. I think technically, I don't know, in the scientific definition of the word resilience, it is has to do with elasticity, where it's something returns to its original form. And that definitely is an example of resilience. But I agree, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. And I don't know that it should be, because if you're just constantly returning to the same form, then you're not actually learning or progressing or growing.
Yeah, I kind of had it you're never pulled back and kept back, or you're never completely stopped and stuck. It's whether you change course or slow down or something, but you're the ability to keep moving. So, Jules?
Yeah, a merger of what you guys just said, being adaptable to continue moving in our day-to-day. And that comes with just time under fitness and finding ways. And you
don't give the tips away yet. We're going to get there.
Okay, so then I'll stop there.
Just how you define it first. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Alex, do you have anything to add that's different than what we had to say?
Yeah, actually, I'm so glad we did this, because I feel like mine is same but different. I think of resilience as just taking full and complete responsibility for myself, and ultimately not being a victim to my circumstances. Yeah. So I think it all of it is encompassed in that. But when I think of resilience, that's what allows for me to bounce back or keep moving forward, is kind of approaching everything with that mindset.
And actually that takes me perfectly to how each of us defines mental toughness, because the way that you define resilience is more the way that I start to think about mental toughness. So when I was thinking about this earlier, I thought of mental toughness being like 3 parts for me. Number 1 is like a completely brutally honest level of self-awareness. Because I don't think that you can be tough if you're avoiding the thing that you need to be tough about. And then accountability. So being aware of it and then being accountable for, so not just like, oh, I'm in this crappy situation. That's awareness for sure. But, oh, what part of this crappy situation did I play a hand in and do I have control over? And then the third piece is resilience for me. Okay, like how am I going to be able to continue moving? So for me, mental toughness are kind of like those 3 things put together. Jeb, how would you define mental toughness?
So I think mental toughness is I guess choosing the strategy to be resilient that best serves you. So it comes down to like your attitude. So it's how are you going to adapt to these things and accept the reality of the things that you cannot control, the things you do have power over and don't have power over. And then what is the way that you can move forward that is going to give you the best attitude. And I read, and I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but basically if resilience is survival, like if you're resilient, then you can just keep surviving. Then mental toughness is actually prospering.
I like that. And I think there's actually like a huge misconception too, or something that people want or expect to have happen where they think of people who are mentally tough. And I know I've thought this before. They think of people who are mentally tough and think, oh, like nothing ever gets to them. Like, and we could use a workout, for example. They see somebody who they don't seem to have that mental breakdown in a workout, and they assume that that person is never in their mind being like, oh my gosh, like I'm dying right now. And I don't think that's true. I think it's the ability to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm dying right now. And then what can I do about it and let me keep going, as opposed to letting it take over. And I think there is a big misconception for people who don't see themselves as mentally tough, that I don't have the ability to be like, I'm fine no matter what. And that's not a correct way to look at it, I don't think. What's your definition of mental toughness?
Yeah, just being able to silence that inner voice on a regular basis with the attitude that you bring to the table. You know, full Silencio Bruno vibes from the new Pixar movie.
Such a good movie.
It's exactly what it is. You just gotta, because in every workout, there's that voice that's uncomfortable, that's telling you to stop. But it's your attitude and you constantly overcoming that builds that mental toughness. So, yeah.
Like labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alex?
I don't know that I have a ton to add to that, but in a lot of ways, I think when I think of mental toughness, it's like I'm choosing the rational, logical part of my brain, like my prefrontal cortex, versus that little voice that I feel like is more
Like
often the
emotional,
lizard
yeah.
brain. Yeah. I think who says that? Seth Godin? Lizard brain? Anyway, irrelevant. But yeah, like those little urges or like those really like animal instincts, and silencing them, acknowledging them for what they are, but then choosing to do something differently, which is incredibly tough, which is why it requires mental toughness.
Yeah, and just never letting the lizard completely take over to where now you're just like spiraling. So funny, but I was thinking about when I was preparing for this, one of the ways to even diagnose if you have mental toughness. I remember when I was first competing in CrossFit, there was an athlete who always won everything. And she would just come in, she was like super happy and bubbly and she would win. And I remember someone said to me one time, like, because I was more of a very emotional person, and if I had a bad workout or a bad event, it would really get to me and I would really struggle and I'd be like crying and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm just not mentally tough. But then what I had noticed was when this person eventually had other athletes that started to be on her level, she wasn't super happy and bubbly and anything. The happiness and the bubbliness and the like, I'm just here to have fun only worked for her when she was constantly winning. And so I just thought she was more mentally tough, but maybe it was that she hadn't yet been in a position. So you have to be in a position to be mentally tough to decide if you are, type of thing. And so anyway, that was one thing that I was thinking about. And then the other thing is when we were watching that DJ Khaled Wings thing.
Oh my gosh.
And like, I think that there's definitely like, so Julian watches this show called The Hot Ones, and it's where they eat these like wings and each wing gets hotter. And there was a DJ Khaled episode, and he's just a ridiculous person. I'm sorry. He's just a ridiculous person. And whenever he would ask a question that was like a real, like, hey, let me get to know you as a real human being and not this character. It was this fake level of confidence, almost on the side of delusional.
Oh yeah.
To where I think we see that a lot too, where it's like, no, I'm fine. Like the teenage boy, like whatever, you can't get to me. And then he like goes home and cries because his girlfriend broke up with him or something like that. That's also not mental toughness. That's like a fake confidence that I think people think of as mental toughness, which is not the same thing. Okay, next question. Do you think that mental toughness and or resilience are something that you are born with, or a skill that can be developed, or both? Jeb?
Well, first of all, I agree with you, and I actually don't really like the term mental toughness because it's so misleading and misunderstood. Because a lot of times it doesn't really have to do with like being super tough. It's being able to just manage things. And so I think it's possible that you could be you're born with some amount of ability to, some amount of resolve, right?
Like women are more mentally tough than men.
Yeah, exactly.
Naturally.
Women are
Exactly.
naturally more mentally tough than men. And that's all I have to say. Now, but I think that no matter what level you have, if it's not practiced throughout your life, if you don't get opportunities to become more resilient or more mentally tough, then it's not going to go anywhere. And so I think that the nurture component of it is far more important, regardless of how much resiliency you're born with.
It's so true though, right? Because I think we oftentimes think of babies as these like fragile little beings, but if you look at like Banner's he's a little over a year old now, and he falls and he fails at everything he tries the first time he tries it. And there's never this like, we see it more with Knox now because he's older and he's watched too many shows on TV of like characters doing stuff like this. But you never see Banner being like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. This is too hard. You never see a baby saying or thinking those types of things. But even Knox at 4 years old has already like picked up on some of that. So there's definitely a big element of it being learned one way or the other. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously, I think you're definitely born with it as a baby, because if you step back and you watch them, the development, they just keep going and going and going, and they don't ask you to feel bad for them, and then it is a skill that you have to continue to develop as you get older. I look back at my years in high school and high school wrestling. I didn't really know how to be resilient. I would always let my emotions get the best of me, and I don't think I had the best person to guide. I think it's very important to, as a role model, as adults who have kind of figured out and understand that it's an ongoing process, to help guide our youth in that right direction and realize that's why I think that sports in high school and just growing up in general is a great way to train that, and continue to do that from my experience. I think, and then as I've gotten older, I think jumping into competition in CrossFit was really good for me, because it helps you, and every workout till this day just helps you work and fine tune that by drowning out that inner voice. So, and I think that's what just ultimately leads to really good confidence, and just to how to approach your day-to-day with that resilience, not only in physical, but also in mental stuff that goes on in your day-to-day.
Do you think, Alex, that some people are born with it more than others? Like, I think we've established that like babies in general are pretty resilient, but do you think that there's like some sort of like genetic component to it at all?
I feel like there is. I feel like there has to be.
Maybe. I don't know. There's probably a study somewhere if you Google it.
Yeah. I feel like there are propensities.
Surprised Jeb doesn't already know about
I
it.
know. Slacking, Jeb.
Sorry.
But no, I mean, regardless, I think of wherever you start, like Jeb was saying, it's 100% for me, it's a practiced skill that requires ongoing, if not daily, weekly, monthly assessment and edification.
Ooh, that was a nice word. So yeah, I mean, and Julian kind of started out by talking about his high school sports, and I think that that's a really common one that people can, whether it's junior high, high school, college, whatever level that you played sports in. I think that that's a common one that people can see how that was developed, and in some people, depending on that your coach that did you just spill on yourself again? Just be resilient and just wipe it off. Just wipe it off and keep going. Depending on the coach that you had, you might have built a lot more character than others. And that's, a hot topic with parents these days is that everybody gets a trophy and that kind of thing. Let's talk about other experiences that we've had. And this can be like childhood, or it can be more recent. It could be, having a kid and learning mental toughness that way, because that's definitely a different way of strengthening that whole thing. But what are some ways that you developed or that you feel like you've developed mental toughness? Because I think a lot of our members probably look at us and they're like, oh my gosh, I know I see comments a lot on my social media of like, oh my God, how are you still working out when you're so tired? Or like, how are you like sticking to the nutrition? Like why is it so much harder for me than it is for you? So what are some ways that you guys have maybe developed this skill before now? So we'll start with Jeb.
So, I don't want to weird anybody out here,
Oh,
but
boy.
the first thing that comes to mind, if I'm being perfectly honest, is sobriety. So I'm going on like 14 years of sobriety. And prior to that, I went back and forth, right? Struggled obviously really hard. And there was periods where I could be sober for a few months, 6 months, maybe 7 months. And so like that is resiliency. Like I was able to cut out the thing that I thought was the problem, but I was completely unhappy. I was really failing in a lot of personal relationships. Like my life had no quality to it. And then when I finally got sober for the time that it stuck, like I was given a set of tools, and I was given a set of tools that I could implement, and it worked for me. So I was given a strategy and a way of approaching life and a way of looking at problems and adversity as like a gift and as a challenge to be embraced. And so I feel like that to me is a big example of kind of the difference between resiliency and mental toughness. Because on the one hand, it's like, yeah, I could force something and just do the thing that I said I was going to do and just try to like, and that's what I think a lot of people think mental toughness is like, I'm just going to
Try harder,
yeah, and just bang this like square peg into a round hole and just keep banging and banging and banging. And eventually it's probably going to work. And I don't care how miserable I am in the process. Or it's like, just accept what's happening and be willing to try some different things. And then it actually becomes easy. And I feel like having mental toughness is almost, to me, things, when you have that, everything else becomes easier. It's not like you're able to push harder. It's just everything else gets easier. And so for me, like being able to look at a problem and identify actually what the problem is, accept the parts of that I have control over, and then just look at the very first little thing in front of me and do that thing. And then do that thing again and just keep doing that thing. And then look at the next thing. Right. And so I've been able to apply that to pretty much every other area of my life. So like when I opened a gym, I was able to use those tools to help build the gym and make that successful. And when I'm in little workouts, it's like I'm able to use those tools and be successful. So I think a lot of that kind of comes back to just that experience for me. That was where I really, I think, got to feel a true example of resiliency and mental toughness.
100%. Because I think what swallows people where they're like, this is too much, I can't do this, like, there's no way, is when they look at the whole picture. Like if you on day whatever of sobriety would have been like, wait, I have to do this my whole life, instead of being like, no, I just have to do it again tomorrow. Like just today, I have to do it today, and then I have to do it tomorrow, instead of like forever. Like that's too much. Like I'm never going to make it. And it can be the same in a 10-minute workout. Like, wait, I have 9 more minutes. It's like, no, you have 30 more seconds, and then you have 30 more seconds again. And it's the exact same principles. But having a strategy, I think, is huge, because a lot of times people do. It's just like, well, I just need to try harder. I'm just not trying hard enough. And oftentimes that's not true. It's like, okay, when this happens, how am I going to deal with it? Planning that and thinking about it before you're in the situation, I think, can go a really long way, as opposed to just trying harder. What's your example from your life?
I mean, we were talking about this right before this live. For me, I think it was acting, moving to LA to become an actor, and then going to auditions and hearing so many no's, right? Because part of the excitement of going out there is like, oh my goodness, everyone thinks they can be a star. And then they go out, and then they get praise from their manager, their agent. They're like, I can get you all this, I can send you out on auditions. But then you realize that you are the one that has to put in the work, and then there's still other elements working against you. It's not just, there's so many good actors, same as coaches. There's so many good coaches out in the world that we just don't know of, But for me, just hearing all those no's, every time I heard no, or I thought I did good, or you get callbacks and you go meet producers and you go, you're signing contracts, but only if you book the job, and then you don't get them. And those moments, there's so many times I remember moments of me sitting in the car and just asking myself, why are you doing this? What are you going to do different? How are you going to overcome this moment? Because this is, you realize every single experience either will just kind of break you down, or you find attitude, which again, I think is the mental toughness, into finding like what you learned from that experience and what can you do differently for your next one. And what I have found is there's like one lady that I met in an audition one time, because I looked at her resume, and this was when I was like 18, and it was just packed, and she was like in these Spider-Man films. She was a successful actress, but she never had like major roles, but it was enough to make a living, because there's a lot of those actors and actresses out there as well. And I was like, wow, like how long did it take you to do this? She's like, 10 years. And in that moment, I was like, that seems like forever. But she said, it took me 10 years, but once I got going, now I do this full time. And that always stuck with me, because it's true. It's the resilient, it is the mentally tough individuals that have a way to continue moving forward that will always come out on top. If you look at all the successful individuals in the world, and you look and you read books about them, because everybody's like looking for that secret ingredient. Well, that ingredient is resilience and mental toughness and attitude, right? You have to keep moving forward. It doesn't matter if it takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Some people develop it quicker than others, but the longer you stay at it and you're trying different ways, I guarantee you that it's just a matter of time before you find that break, and then it just takes off. So that was the acting for me was one that really just helped me a lot in life.
I was going to use that same example, because I did a lot of plays and musicals, and then some like random little TV stuff. When I was young, though, I was like 7, 8, 9 years old. And I would go to auditions, and I mean, if you don't get it, that, I mean, sometimes it was just because you didn't look the right way or whatever, but it was basically telling a 7-year-old, like, sorry, you didn't do a good job. Like, that's why this didn't happen for you. And I think that, sorry, hearing that is important. I think that hearing you didn't do a good enough job is a way to build that like awareness, I guess, and ability to take feedback. I think one of the things in my life that has been so critical for me is I am a very sensitive person. I'm very emotional, and I do take everything from your Instagram comments to the DMs that I get to the way that you look at me in Target. I take everything personal, but I have developed over the years an ability to continue moving, even if I'm super butthurt by something, or even if so the acting was one thing when I was young. I also had a piano teacher that was very mean. Like, I would cry my eyes out before my piano lesson every time, and my parents stuck with it. Like, I had this piano teacher for a very long time, and at the time, like, I can only imagine, like, as a mom, like, just find a new piano teacher. But whatever, they saw the value in it, and I was getting better, and I would, once she was there, I would listen, and it was fine. I think experiences like that are really important. And then when I was working for the CrossFit seminar staff, this was probably the worst. This was worse than the auditions. Was we would be assigned to give a lecture, and we would have to like talk about, I don't know, whatever, deadlifts or whatever. And you would sit down with the person in charge, and you would have this like 30 to 45 minute conversation of all of the ways that you messed this thing up and how you could have done it better. And I remember I used to go to my hotel room and just cry because I had prepared so much and I had been so nervous, but I thought I did a good job. And then they basically just gave me this list of all the things I need to do better next time. But somehow I had developed this ability to be like, all right, I'm going to fix it. But it required me to not bury the emotions. Like, it's okay, have them, but then continue and show up and try to do better next time. And those lessons have been invaluable to me. And so I think part of what we're going to talk about as far as like tips go is the ability to not only be self-aware, but take feedback from other people and actually listen to it and not get defensive. And that's actually something that's really hard for me to do, but it's a skill that I've developed. So those are a couple. And then just having 4 brothers helps too. And them just hitting you with hockey sticks when you're a child was built some mental toughness. What about you, Alex?
I don't know so much about, well, recently, and I post about this, my husband and I, Josh, have been going to this local park and playing basketball. And basketball was one of the few sports that I did not play growing up because I was not good at it. And because things came generally naturally to me, it's like it was okay for me to just slough off on the thing. Like, I don't have to play basketball. I play all these other sports. But it also kind of eliminated some opportunities for me to develop some mental toughness. And now that I'm older and I'm a bit more mature and I can't just throw a tantrum when I don't make a layup, it's been really cool, I think, because what I'm working on is failing and not identifying with that failure. And I think that's an essential part with any endeavor that we're striving toward is it's okay to mess up, almost expecting that you'll mess up because we're human and we do that. It's kind of our thing. But not clinging to it so much that it keeps me from continuing to try. And then having people around me who are really supportive and can help me like laugh at myself, which my husband does, is super helpful. And it's as silly as it is and as like trivial and like playful as that has been over the last couple months, I feel like it's taught me a lot. And that's like mental toughness. And I feel like my idea of resilience is what you guys think of as mental toughness and vice versa. Because for me, resilience, the biggest example I have of that, and most people know, is that my dad broke his back when he was 15 years old and has been a paraplegic ever since. And I always get choked up when I talk about it, but that never stopped him. Like, I'm sure, growing, like, after that, he probably struggled with it a lot, but then he decided this is not the story that I'm going to play out in my life. And then he had this awesome career despite barely graduating high school. He had a wonderful family who he provided for, along with my mother. I mean, it's just anytime I start feeling sorry for myself, I have an amazing example of what it looks like to not play the victim, to take responsibility for your life, and to not only survive, but then flourish. Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like, that's like such a perfect example of something like really big, an example that you got to see like firsthand and that he set for you. I think, Jeb, your example is another like really big one. And sometimes I think that people think that developing these skills requires some big life event like that to happen. And it's like, oh, well, you know, I've never had to overcome some major thing, so maybe that's like my problem. But I think there's more mental toughness or resilience in the day-to-day. And I think people lack more. I actually, I always joke around because I've had some pretty serious injuries. And for some reason, if I like get a paper cut, I'll cry about it. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to wash my hands. It's going to hurt so bad. But if I break my neck, I'm like, whatever, it's fine. And I think people are like that. Like if a big life event happens, they somehow can switch their brain into crisis mode and I've got this and I'm going to do it. But when it's like simple day to day, like, but it would just be so much easier to do this right now. The mental toughness isn't quite there as much. So what are some ways without having some big life trauma happen? What's like one tip that you would give people to be able to develop these skills?
One tip. So one thing I like to always say is that there is no magic pill. If there was a magic pill, I would have found it, right?
He's taken all the pills.
I'm
at this
taking them
point.
all. Trust me, it's not out there. But I agree with you. I mean, that's the hardest thing is to just, it's what we always say. It's like getting up and doing the same thing over and over is way harder than some crazy over-the-top program. And so as far as it like an actionable tip, like one thing that really, really helps me is that I do the same thing every day to start my day, right? Like as soon as I wake up, I take a few minutes and I think about what my day is going to look like. What is the day in front of me? And so I can't remember who said this, but it was some philosopher or somebody, right? But it was like experiencing the unknown and uncertainty is central to the human existence. Like that is what life is. It's literally having to manage and deal with the unknown and the uncertain, things that are unexpected. So to think that we could ever get into such a routine that nothing new is ever going to come in there and disrupt it is ridiculous. So I'd like to take a few minutes and just tell myself, like, you know, today you're going to encounter some jerk. You know, you're going to encounter something that you don't want to do. You know that some things are going to happen that are unexpected. But that doesn't mean that I have to change anything as far as how I'm going to deal with it, as far as my attitude, as far as anything like that. And if I want to, you know, if I have some type of goal that I'm working on, that doesn't have to be affected by it. So the long and short of it is, if you can take a few minutes in the morning to just, you know, think about your day, think about the next 24 hours and how you're going to participate in that 24 hours, how you're going to show up for that 24 hours, it really goes a long way in making that 24 hours really, really worthwhile. And the more you do that, the better it gets and the more impact that it has. So the first day that you do it, who knows? Maybe some crazy thing will happen and it's like, this didn't work. But if you do it for 7 days, then talk to me and I guarantee you'll feel something.
Nice. Jules, what's a tip? Something that like they could think about or try or a situation, whatever.
Oh man.
It could be like in their workout. It could be like in their, I don't know, as they're going about their day, whatever.
I don't have one right now. You have to come back to me.
Okay. Another example that I had written down some like phrases, and one of the phrases that I wrote down was put yourself in shitty situations on purpose. And one of the other things that I would say in my life helped build resilience, and this is a very specific to the situation type of resilience, but I have travel resilience. Like, again, I'm a very emotional person, but like if you put me in a really long line for TSA or something like that, it impacts me 0%. Only because I've had so many terrible travel experiences that I'm kind of numb to it at this point. And Julian's experienced this with me. I think we went to Mexico and we had to go through customs like twice and then through TSA. Like it was just a disaster. And he was like, I don't know how you did this for so long. Like it was getting to him and he's the most relaxed person ever. And I was just like, no, this is just it. And so, and obviously when I was traveling, I wasn't like putting myself in those situations on purpose. But you can do that. And yesterday, at the end of the workout on the tips, I was talking about, we did Rhea, which is a workout with double unders and squat cleans. I was talking about how I did not want to do that workout yesterday at all. There was 0% of me, like all the other workouts for the rest of the week looked more fun. And so because these things are skills that have to be not only developed, but maintained, you can't just get to a level of mental toughness and you're like, cool, achieved it. I don't have to ever like practice this or work on this anymore. As I've gotten away from competing and training hard in that way, I feel that I have to choose the hard things that I don't want to do and put myself in those situations on purpose or I will lose it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, because I don't want to do this so much, I have to do it. And so putting yourself in those situations on purpose, and whether that's choosing the version of the workout that you least want to do, or you're super comfortable on the bike and forcing yourself to do the rower or do the runner or run outside, working out outside when you're like, oh, I hate working out outside the sun. It's like so hot or it's cold out there. Like choosing to put yourself in situations that you don't want to be in on purpose is a tip that I would give to help build some mental toughness and resilience. Force yourself to overcome.
Would you include an ice bath in there?
I've done ice baths. Yeah. That's one of the things, we've talked about like people that take these cold showers and 100%, like I'm the person that's like, no. Like I have 2 little kids and I'm already not sleeping. And the last thing I'm going to do is take my freaking warm shower away from myself. But yeah, stuff like that. If that just sounds awful to you, maybe don't do it forever, but there is benefit in kind of, pushing yourself to do those kinds of things. And not ever in like a scary or dangerous or like unhealthy way, but noticing what you're fighting against so much. And the more you're fighting it, the more it probably means you should at least do it for a short period of time.
Nice. That reminds me, back when we owned our affiliates, we had a little like saying or mantra, and it was do hard stuff fast. And it was kind of a play on words because we did mean like actually do it quickly, but we also meant like fast and before it's too late, like choose to do the hard things now before it becomes what you have to do.
It's literally as small as like, I don't feel like taking the trash out. Like just do it right now.
Or
then.
just
like you
not
just
hitting the snooze button.
Yeah.
Or, so one thing, and hopefully this is a tip, because I do feel like it's an actionable step and it's something that I do. And I had mentioned it being a daily practice. And one of the things I do every morning is journaling. And I think people are like, what do I journal about? Like, oh, I have a crush on so-and-so. It's like, that's not a reality for me anymore. So usually what I do is I spend that time, if there's some like conflict, let's say, or something that I'm struggling with, something maybe that like is messing with my emotional sobriety, let's say, it's an opportunity for me to work, like literally brainstorm, and I work well with like pen to paper. So maybe you can do this in some other media or fashion, but writing out the situation that I'm currently dealing with. What is the reality? Not how I'm perceiving it or anything like that, but literally what are the facts? What are the circumstances? And then what is the part that I'm playing in it? What hand do I have in this? And getting really clear on what that is then allows me, and this is something I do with journaling as well, is literally like setting up a game plan. Using the tools that I've developed over my, 28 years, and figuring out, okay, well, how am I going to move forward? Sometimes it's with action. Sometimes it's with changing my behavior. But sometimes it's honestly just thinking about something differently, like changing my perspective about it so that I can move forward, which is what we've agreed is resilience. And it's not bouncing back to something that I was prior. It's like an absorption of what's happened, and then like integrating it into my life, and then moving forward. I mean, stronger, smarter, wiser than I was before, which is not bouncing back. I'm different now because I've taken what I've learned and now I'm using it to do better and be better.
And I think like writing down the reality and like writing down what you have control over, and that's been brought up several times now, of like that awareness of what part am I playing in this, or what do I have control over? Because we don't always have control over all of it. Like when I'm in the line for security, like I don't have control over how fast it's moving. I have control over like, maybe use that time to listen to a book, or I don't know, like what can I do to right now to change the situation? Maybe it's nothing. So if it's nothing, then you got to let it go. And I think what we see a lot of times, even like on our Facebook group or things like that, is people focusing so hardcore on their problem that they haven't gotten around yet to looking at any sort of solution. And the questions are usually formed of like, this is hard for me. This is hard for me. I don't like this. I don't like this. Instead of like, these are the things that I can do. Can you guys help me figure out, or this is the time that I do have. Can you guys help me figure out the best way to attack this? It's always what I can't do, what's too hard, what's not in my control is where people tend to focus. So I think that's like a super good tip. Super good. Did you come up with one?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the do more uncomfortable things more frequently, get out of your element. One of the things that me personally, I've been wanting to overcome is my fear of snakes. And because I don't like snakes at all. I think there's a reason why Satan was a snake. But anyway, I think that for me, finding, and the reason I've thought of this before is because anytime I go to like deserty areas or even like anything that's like dry, I always feel like there's gonna be like a gardener snake just popping out of me, and I'm gonna freak out and I'm gonna run away and leave Knox or one of the boys to like deal with it. But the thing is, now that I'm a father, I'm like, I need to overcome this fear, because you start to realize like your fears can then rub off on them as well. And that's not something that I want them to be scared of. So I've been meaning to like try to go to like, I don't know, PetSmart or somewhere and just.
Do we need to make a vlog of this?
No. And then just like grab a snake and just hold it and, just let it be and feel what I want to feel and realize that everything's okay. Because for some reason I have ingrained that every snake is venomous. Like every snake's going to bite me and I'm going to die.
You used to live in Central Cali.
I know.
There's a lot of snakes over there.
Can we get like an office snake?
I'll get a pet snake for Knox.
Maybe. Hey, there's a reason why Batman created his Batcave and, made his symbol the bat. He hated them.
Oh, that's
and
so you're the snake.
Yeah, so then now I was like, you know what? I could learn a thing or two from Batman. So anyway, yes. I want to do that. That's like a personal thing, just like really zoning in on one specific item as opposed to like a general. But that's for me. I know, Miranda, you don't like spiders.
I'm not super terrified of spiders. I just don't like how fast they move, but I'm not like super terrified of them, like the smaller ones. I'm a fan of snakes. I'll capture a snake and put it on you.
And see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like I just need to overcome that. And that's the best way to become resilient, is to face the fear, face that by, finding, good intro ways to do that. And I think that's the best way to do it. I'm going to go to like a PetSmart.
I think that might sound like a silly example to some people, but it's just like we're saying, like, it doesn't always have to be some huge thing. I think when we're younger, we tend to try new things and things that scare us a little bit more. And as we get older, it's so much easier for us to be like, oh no, like I'm good. Like I'm not going to go. I've seen people do that with like trying new foods foods, or even like traveling to places that sound a little bit like sketchy, or, you know, going and trying this, like, I don't know, hang gliding, whatever. Like when we're younger, we tend to be like, sure, whatever, I'll do it. And then as we get older, for some reason, I feel like we get more scared, or we protect ourselves more and things like that. But even just recognizing that you're like uncomfortable around snakes and you're in your 30s, like go do something about it. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to just be like, nope, that's not me, I'm scared of snakes, and live like that forever.
Yeah,
and
you know what was another good one was ocean swimming.
Oh
If
my
you've never
gosh.
done an ocean
yes,
swim,
yes, that built some resilience for me.
My goodness, the amount
Nope.
of, I would say that for me, in the past 5 years, was something that
Same.
like was just so empowering, because every time we'd have to practice ocean swimming in Huntington Beach, and the lifeguards are out there telling you, oh yeah, there's like 5 baby sharks, don't worry about it. They're like, well, how big is a baby shark? Like 7 feet. What? Like, oh yeah, their mouths are only like this big, you know. But to him, he was comfortable. But like, you know, I have a hard time swimming in the ocean.
Or just
there's
in
just so
general.
many there's so much unknown. It's not like you can open your eyes in the water, and if you ever swallow ocean water, it's the worst feeling ever. That
And
to
then
me
you just
was,
feel like you're like halfway dead already.
you literally have to find a way to just be at peace and realize you have to come to acceptance, like, I'm gonna get bitten by a shark, and this is it. Like, I'm the whole time, and just be okay with it.
You just have a lot of fear of animals.
No.
I agree with you on the swimming thing though, actually. And one of the, we made these little like mantra posters when I was a few days before I gave birth to Banner. And because of that, my poster that I made said every wave brings me closer to shore, because that was burned in my brain as one of the like scariest, hardest things I've ever done. But you can't fight it. Like as soon as you start fighting it, and one of the things that has helped me be more resilient in life is, and I think Alex, you're probably the same way, because I know you're a very perfectionist type person, is that that ability to be able to relax when you just are not in control. And labor taught me that, but also swimming in the ocean taught it to me first. It's really, I mean, some of the people that live in like Hawaii and Australia right now are just laughing at us because they just love it, and they do it from the time they're little kids.
I have like one more, or I guess
Another
2
tip?
more. Yeah,
Okay.
things, especially since we have to consider our audience, I think. But if you're doing the street parking daily or shift workouts, I think you have an opportunity anytime to pick maybe one movement. Like for me, it's always, I tend to go towards like trying to do something unbroken, because a lot of times I have to choose to be really uncomfortable to commit to that goal. And it's like, it's just getting reps in. Like, I feel like every time you work out, you have an opportunity to practice being a little bit tougher mentally. And then I was just thinking, like, how can we do this with nutrition? I feel like that's an easy one, though. Like, there are vegetables that I eat pretty regularly that I don't love, that I like tolerate at best. But it's important to me, knowing the nutritional value of these vegetables or whatever food it might be, that I freaking just suck it up and eat the vegetables. Like,
Which veggies?
Brussels sprouts in particular.
Really?
You just gotta dice them up smaller.
Let me
Also, I'm lazy.
Real quick. let me make them enjoyable.
Yeah, and
what you
like,
have in your control with the Brussels sprouts.
yeah, and I'm also a believer in like your food should taste good. I'm not saying that you should like suffer through it, but at the same time, I think mental toughness is the choice of doing something because it's good for you, not because it tastes good. Like plain water. It's not the best tasting. Of course,
delicious.
Soda is
Yeah,
great.
water is amazing.
Water you drink.
No, it is. Also that. I'm just saying,
No, I totally get it. Like,
we're
that Washington
exposed to
tap or that
stuff that's
that
way
Conga.
more tasty, and we choose not to drink those things. We choose to drink water because it's good for us.
I think it's in Atomic Habits, but I could be wrong. But you've read it too, so tell me if you remember this as well. But he does talk about like things that bring you instant pleasure are typically have long-term negative results, and things that are like in the moment more difficult, like eating the Brussels sprouts or drinking the water over the soda, have those long-term benefits. And it's really hard, especially like this day and age. It's so easy for everything, whether it's food or just physical comfort or anything, to just choose the more comfortable option. And that is why, like back in the day when we were all like farmers and cavemen or whatever, like there was no one giving talks about like, hey, choose something that's going to be hard for you today to like stay mentally sharp. Like they had to, like that was their life. They didn't need to practice it as much back then as we do now. But just like the physical act of fitness, there's like a mental component of fitness that's so huge. But the long-term benefits from it are so big. And actually, when you were talking about sharks and the ocean, do you remember when we were dating and I went and swam with the sharks in the ocean?
Oh yeah, that was a big thing for you.
Yeah, and I actually was afraid of swimming in the ocean, and I'm not as afraid of sharks as some people, but they were like these little Nerf sharks. But because I had put myself in a situation where I knew I was capable of swimming in the ocean, and because I had an attitude of how can you say no to this opportunity? Like this is like a really cool thing. I was mentally in a place that allowed me to go do something that was really, really cool. The guy that I went with, Josh, he didn't want to do it either. Like both of us, as we were like riding the boat out there, we're like, what are we doing? We're going to die. Like this is terrible. But what an opportunity. And so many opportunities come up for you when you're in the right place mentally and you're like, F it, let's go, let's do it. I want to do it. And you have so many cooler experiences in life and things open up to you so much more, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, a move to somewhere that you never thought you could move that far away or something like that. But it is definitely a mental space. My other thing that I wrote down that I wanted to make sure and hit, because I think this is a really important one, and something that we've been talking a lot about lately, is watching who you surround yourself with. And as a child, you don't have a lot of say when it comes to this. And I think this is where some people develop much more mentally tough than other people from childhood, where when you do fail or when you do struggle or something like that, are the people around you saying, you know what? Yeah, you totally blew it, but I believe that you can do it and you're going to get it. Or are the people around you saying, this isn't fair, that wasn't your fault, you shouldn't try so hard, like you're doing the best you can, like what are the people around you saying? And pay attention to that, because again, it's more comfortable to hang out with people that are like, that wasn't your fault, you shouldn't feel bad, you shouldn't try so hard, like and it's not that you shouldn't love yourself the way you are, because we all should for sure, but there is a level of that can be detrimental in your ability to maintain mental toughness or gain it and be resilient. I know it's something we've been talking a lot about lately.
Yeah, your circle is extremely important. I mean, I know, people always say, oh, I'm a fitness, watch out who ain't fitness bowling, but, at the end of the day, I feel what I look forward to is when the individual then realizes after they complete a workout what they just accomplished, because you didn't do it for me, you did it for yourself, and look at what you've gained because of that.
Julian believes in you.
I do.
He wouldn't ask you to do it.
I absolutely, I really, really do. And vice versa, I like those kinds of challenges. I have found a way to do that for myself, so I don't really become so dependent on it. But it does help when other people that have the same mentality are around me, because, you don't allow that slippage to happen. And then you're like, oh, okay, maybe I won't do this, try so hard today because everybody around me. No. One of the things that we've also discussed is that as we get older, it's important to maintain resilience and keep that mental toughness, because don't be the average individual. Don't be the average human who just declines as they get older. Be as resilient as long as possible and set a new norm, because as we get older, you can see you tend to become more relaxed and more comfortable in your surroundings. You're like, I don't want to go as hard. And because I can acknowledge that now, I do like my surroundings of people saying like, oh, I'm going to push me to go, a little bit harder.
You're one of the older guys in the gym now.
Yeah, it's, I'm at that place, and I really enjoy that, and But yeah, your circle is extremely important. It doesn't just apply to fitness; it applies to everything, right? That it's an attitude thing that you have to look for in individuals, and once you know what that is and how it feels, you'll know how to spot that easily in a crowd.
And I think it's not just how they talk to you, but it's how you see how they deal with problems in their own life too. Again, it could be like people at work, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be fitness, but like surrounding yourself with other people who are like, oh man, like that didn't go the way I thought it was going to be, but this is how I think I could have done it different, or even just whatever, and showing up the next day and not letting it slow them down or deter them, I think is something huge that you can pay attention to. I also had written down, because more than nothing is such a big thing in the street parking community, and sometimes that attitude shows mental toughness, and sometimes more than nothing is a cop-out. And I did a podcast about this a little while ago, maybe a year ago or so, where when you have just had a day and you're just like, I don't feel like doing this at all, I don't want to work out, more than nothing shows mental toughness for sure. I'm going to go out, I'm not going to start my clock, I'm going to do it. But when you're totally fine and there's no reason for you not to be able to go push hard, being like, oh, whatever, more than nothing, right, guys? Like, yay. No. That's not the intent of more than nothing. And I think it's a phrase that I haven't seen it used that way a lot, but I have seen it used that way a few times, where you do have to be careful of consistency in being too comfortable, and just using stuff like that to slap on there and not refine how hard you go. And it's not, I don't think, at least me personally, I mean, Julian goes a little bit harder in the workouts than I do, more consistently, but it's not an everyday thing. It's just choosing sometimes where it's like, I really don't want to do this, so I probably should, and I'm going to give it 100%.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like Alex had posted on your Dexa post, right? She's really good with the captions. But you'd said something about how, your sometimes foods had turned into like your a lot of the time foods, and that you pretty much are what you consistently do. So it's about what you're consistently doing, right? So if you're consistently doing less than what you're capable of and saying, oh, I did more than nothing, then yeah, we kind of know where that's going to lead. Probably not to where you want to go. But if once in a while you're not feeling it and you just do something just to check the box, then that's awesome. And I think it's like, even with the people, when I think about like, it's like what you consume, right? And you consume the attention of the people around you, and you consume information with what you allow your eyes to behold, right? With it, whether it's like looking at the news and watching people fight and yell at each other all day, like that's not going to put you in a good mental place.
And blame each other for everything.
And blame each other for everything, and if you're surrounding yourself with people that are like not going to be honest with you, one way or the other, I mean, it should go without saying, but one of the kind of the third category we didn't really talk about was like people that subtly keep you down, people that subtly want to put you beneath them. And that's very, very toxic, and nobody needs that. And I think sometimes we get a belief system that like, oh, this person's up here, and it's okay if they kind of like tell me that I'm less than or not as capable as maybe I really am. And I think we're all capable of a lot more than we think. And so, it's like you're consuming, what foods are you consuming? What liquids are you consuming? What people are you consuming? I think it's all comes down to what is consistently going in, and that's really going to affect what comes back out.
Yeah, and I feel like with social media, we can be handed our excuses, I think. Like the world just wants to give away excuses because it excuses them.
You can find anyone that will agree with you.
Yeah.
About anything.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, you can also find people who are like that, who are going to lift you up, not coddle you, but show you what I think is true love and help you move forward and move through something. And I also wanted to say, if you don't find yourself in a situation where you are surrounded by those people, I don't think you need to wait to start creating that in your life. I think you can be that for other people. And I feel like when you flip that switch, you learn really quickly who those people are and who those people aren't. And then you maybe even start to attract those people into your life.
Contagious.
Yeah, it's contagious. Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a fine line of like listening to someone, hearing them and validating their feelings, but then walking them and guiding them, maybe holding their hand to the solution in a loving and tolerant way versus judging, shaming, that kind of stuff. But that's another thing that's practice, and you have to start where you are and move forward from there, and just know that you're going to mess up, but doesn't mean you're not going to get better. So.
Yep. All right.
Right. I mean, I love this episode. There. I mean, there's so many.
Great.
Yeah, there's so many things to talk about.
We can keep going.
Yeah, and but let's go ahead and wrap this up for this week. We'll check in with you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anybody that you feel would benefit from watching this. Check in with you guys soon. Take care.